Have you ever been told to just stay positive in a tough situation? How did that make you feel? Thank you for being here today because I'm about to dive into this and so much more, a topic that can honestly make or break our experience in life, the topic of optimism. Today, I want to look at why optimism is such a game changer, how it can sometimes lead us astray, and my favorite part, 3 simple steps to start becoming more optimistic right now. So let's dive in. First, I want to unpack what optimism actually is. Because it's not about wearing rose-colored glasses all the time. It's not about ignoring the hard stuff or pretending everything is perfect. Optimism is a lot deeper than that. It's really about having this underlying belief that things can work out. And not just that they can work out, but we have the power to create some of those positive outcomes. It's empowering yourself to believe that it will all work out. So think of optimism as a choice, a way of looking at the world where you see possibilities instead of just problems. It's like taking a proactive stance on life instead of passively hoping for the best, fingers crossed. Optimism says, I'm going to do what I can to make it better. And that, in my opinion, is pretty powerful. So when we bring that attitude to our daily lives, it can help us stay motivated, focused, and more open to new opportunities. Optimism is one of my best qualities, if I do say so myself. I am someone who believes that things will always work out, but I will not sit back passively and just let life happen. I choose to see the possibilities, to see the opportunities, and I take the steps towards that. When you're faced with a negative situation, you have a choice. Do you stay in the negativity or do you choose to see how this can actually be beneficial to you? That's the difference. When you choose optimism, you choose opportunity. So why am I talking about optimism today? If you're someone who is a worst case scenario type of person, or you dwell in the negative, or you can't see past what's going wrong right now, this episode is for you because right now I want to unpack the benefits of being optimistic because I know it's easier said than done. Oh yeah, just think positive. But why? Why do we need to stay optimistic? And how has that helped me personally in my life? Because as I mentioned, being the eternal optimist that I am, there are opportunities that flood to me just because of my outlook on life. First off, optimism is amazing for our mental health. There's a lot of research showing that optimists tend to have lower stress levels. Why? Because they don't get as bogged down by negative thoughts. When something goes wrong, instead of spiraling, an optimist might say, okay, what's next? Or how can I turn this around? So this mindset can improve our overall mood and even help us stay more resilient during tough times. So I'm sure you could see that. And think of yourself right now. Think of a situation where you were faced with a challenge. How did you approach it? If you're somebody who gets caught up in all the ways that it's going wrong, and why is this happening, and how could this happen, then you can probably see how this will not help you get through the situation. You will stay in that negative space much longer versus someone who is faced with that challenge and can say, all right, this happened. What's next? Solution mode. Let's turn it around. What other possibilities are there? So that's where having a mindset that's more optimistic or allows you to see potential opportunities will help you avoid unnecessary stress. The stress of, oh my God, this is happening. Why is it happening? Why is so negative? That leads to a stress that can be avoided if you're able to look at the opportunity instead of the problem. This will also help you build resilience because once you're able to see solutions or potential outcomes that can be a benefit from this situation, you're then proving to yourself that you can make it through the hard times, that you can, with your own mindset shift, push past those challenges. So, yay, mental health, optimism, they go hand in hand. But there's also physical health benefits. Optimism is actually good for our physical health because there are studies shown that people with more optimistic outlooks on life tend to have a better heart health and even stronger immune system. I'm going to say that again. People who are optimistic will have a stronger immune system. So when we look at life through a more hopeful lens, our bodies respond positively, almost as if we're telling them, we got this. This kind of mindset can reduce, again, those stress hormones, which supports a healthier body. It all comes down to stress again. Let's go back to our thoughts, which influence our feelings, which then influence our actions and over time, our identity. If your thoughts are, oh my God, this is a disaster, it's never going to work out, you can see how that could quickly lead to stress, which then your body will react to, and you'll go into a fight or flight or freeze mode. Versus if your thought, when faced with a stressful situation, is, we got this. You're telling your body that you can make it through. So your body will respond better. And over time, the decreased stress levels or your nervous system being able to regulate is a high contributor to a healthy immune system. I don't know if we talked about it here, but I will mention that your immune system is directly related to stress. The more you are stuck in those high stress response situations without being able to regulate, your immune system will suffer. If you're getting sick a lot, unable to overcome even just a common cold, I would suggest to look at the stress in your life and try very hard to reduce it as much as possible. Your immune system will thank you. The final benefit that I want to talk about when it comes to optimism is resilience. I know I mentioned it when I mentioned mental health, but I think it's worth its own category because optimism will make us more resilient. It's like a built-in reset button that helps us get back up when we've been knocked down. An optimist is more likely to keep trying even when the odds are against them because they believe there's always a way forward. So if resilience is something that you want to build, cultivating a more optimistic outlook is a great place to start. But like anything, optimism has its limits. Sometimes, if we're too optimistic, we end up with these blind spots. For example, if we're convinced everything will work out perfectly, we might miss important red flags or warning signs. It's like putting all our faith in a positive outcome without really preparing for the possibility that things might go wrong. So, this can lead to disappointment or even failure that could have been avoided with a little more foresight. Another potential downside is that optimism can sometimes make us avoid reality, especially when that reality is tough or uncomfortable. So let's say we're being faced with a big challenge. If we're overly optimistic, because that's possible, we might be tempted to think, it'll work out, without actually doing the hard work that's necessary to overcome it. So this can lead to procrastination or avoidance, which only makes the problem bigger in the long run. If I take myself for an example, I am an eternal optimist. I will always see the good in all situations, including people. But I see how I can easily fall into the trap of procrastination when I'm just having blind faith that things will work out and I'm not proactively moving the needle forward. So you need to also take responsibility of if something is not quite right, you're faced with a challenge or an opportunity, yes, have faith, but also know what you need to do to help yourself get to that desired outcome. So it's not just sitting back and being like, it's out of my hands. The universe, God, whoever you believe in, that higher power will lead me there, which is great to believe in, but they're not in it alone. You got to work together on it. So that's where optimism can have its limits. You can be too optimistic and then get into a little bit of trouble. That being said, the trick is to balance optimism with realism. So it's about staying positive, but also staying grounded. We can say, yes, I believe things will work out, and I'll do what I can to make that happen, while still acknowledging that there may be setbacks along the way. So this balance helps us stay hopeful without becoming unrealistic or unprepared. So now we've talked about the benefits of being optimistic, the downfall of being too optimistic. And if you're thinking, what can I do to add just a little more optimism in my day? Here we are. We've come to the 3 steps to become more optimistic right now. This is for the person who finds that it's hard for them to see that the glass is half full. It's hard for them to see the potential positive outcome in a situation, especially if you're in a challenge. The person who is constantly thinking negative thoughts and can't even allow yourself to think that this situation might work out in the best way possible. Number 1, it's a big one. You got to shift that self-talk. We're going back to the thoughts in your head. A lot of us don't realize just how much power that internal dialogue has on our mindset. What are those thoughts running through your mind? If you're always telling yourself things like, I can't do this, or it will never work out, well, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So instead, when things go wrong, try asking yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how can I make this work out for me? What is the lesson that I'm being taught here? What is this trying to teach me? Again, going back to the power of our thoughts, how can you shift that inner dialogue to help yourself see things in a different perspective and ultimately in a perspective that's a little more optimistic than one that you're perhaps used to? So it's a small shift, but it can actually make a big difference. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures, you start to see them as growth opportunities. And over time, this builds a more optimistic outlook because you're training yourself to look for the good, even in tough circumstances. This is huge. When you train yourself to look for the good, you're going to start seeing good everywhere. And this also goes back to where your attention goes, your energy flows. So if your attention is constantly on the negative, guess what you're going to attract more of in your life? Negative. Whereas when you start to focus on the positive, on the things that are going well, the energy around you will change so that you start to attract the positive things into your life. And again, this is all within your control. Don't think that it's a woo-woo, the universe is conspiring against me or I have no control. This is all within your control. Where you choose to place your attention is what you're going to get more of in your life. And that starts with your thoughts. Next, let's talk about gratitude. Practicing gratitude with intentionality, meaning focused on specific moments that were hard, but that you overcame, trains your mind to look for the silver lining. So similar to when I ask you to write that list of accomplishments and then focus on all the things that you've done well, this will train your brain to look for where you've been met with resistance or challenges or obstacles, and you were able to overcome them. So it proves to you that you've done it before. And guess what? If you've done it once, you can definitely do it again. The final way that you can begin to be optimistic right now is to visualize potential solutions and not only problems. So I mentioned earlier that when we're focused on the problem, when we're in the negativity, it's hard for us to see the positive outcome. We get stuck in that cycle, the energy kicks in, and that's what you're attracting. But now I want us to take it one step further. Because if you're someone who, when faced with an obstacle, gets stuck thinking about all the ways that it can go wrong, I want you to ask yourself, what does the solution look like? What is one small step that you can take in that direction? So again, it's shifting your attention away from all the ways it can go wrong to what if it actually works out? And what is one step that I could start taking towards that plan? This shifts your focus away from what you're trying to avoid and towards what you want to achieve. And when you start to look at challenges this way, you're actually building a more optimistic mindset by seeing yourself as someone who can overcome obstacles, reinforcing that resilience once again. So, quick recap. Number one, shift that negative self-talk and those thoughts in your mind. Number two, practice gratitude with intention. See where you've been able to be resilient in the past, where you've been able to get yourself out of obstacles and see the silver lining and remind yourself that you can do that and you can do all the hard things. And number three, visualize solutions, not just problems. It's shifting that energy. It's really all related to what are you telling yourself? What is your mindset when you're faced with this challenge? And having the power to shift that mindset and to choose to be optimistic, because again, it comes down to choice. Now, I hope you can see the power that optimism has in your life and how accessible it is. Even if you're someone who's spent the majority of your life in negativity, you have an opportunity to shift to a more positive mindset, to a more optimistic mindset without falling into toxic positivity. That's another episode. Go check it out. It's on the platform. But here I want to talk about, yes, it will take time, because if you're used to the negative thinking and always looking at problems without solutions, it's going to take practice to be able to help yourself to see things differently. And this is what we're all here to do, to learn new things about ourselves, to learn how mindset shifting tools can help us and how you can be a little bit better every day. So when used properly, optimism can be a powerful tool. It gives us resilience, it improves our health, it helps us stay motivated, but it's important to balance it with a realistic view so that we're not ignoring potential challenges. True optimism is about believing in a positive outcome and putting in the effort to make it happen. So, on that note, I encourage you to think of something that could actually go right. We often focus on all the ways things can go wrong. What if it doesn't work out? But I want to challenge you. I want you to challenge yourself actually by saying, what if it works out? What if it works out better than I could have ever imagined? And lean into that. If you enjoyed this episode, please, I would encourage you to leave me a review or even share it with someone who could use a little positivity boost in their life. Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.